The father of a teenage army recruit who died at her training base more than 20 years ago will today give evidence at her new inquest. Private Cheryl James died from a gunshot wound at Deep Cut Barracks. So did 3 other young soldiers. Over the last 2 decades, inquests followed, bodies have been exhumed, new allegations, including of rape, have emerged. But claims of a culture of bullying and abuse have never been proven. Our correspondent JULIET Bremner is at the inquest in Woking. This inquest is about the death of Cheryl James. What are the families of the other recruits hoping for?
That's right. It is Cheryl's family who have succeeded in getting this second inquest, but all the families of the other 3 are legally represented here, and they were all joined in trying to get a public inquiry that was refused. They have broadly the same complaint. They don't accept those verdicts of suicide. They believe that something as yet undiscovered drove their children to their deaths, and that's what they want to find out. As you heard in Richard's report, there are various bits of new evidence that will be put forward, but they want to know how people they described as happy-go-lucky teenagers were driven to suicidal recruits. And there is a broader issue of the duty of care that they believe the armed forces have for 16 and 17-year-olds who are placed in their trust. They want to make sure on behalf of all those other families who send their children to join the armed forces that something is going to change, that this culture that can allow them to die does not continue.
JULIET Bremner, thank you.
A coroner has promised that a fresh inquest into the death of Private Cheryl James at Deep Cut Barracks 20 years ago will be full, frank and fearless. But he said it won't look at whether or not there was a wider culture of sexual abuse at the army base in Surrey.
Private James was one of 4 young recruits who died at Deep Cut in mysterious circumstances. JULIET Bremner reports from the hearing in Woking.
This was the end of a long, hard fight for Des James. He hopes he'll finally learn the truth about his daughter's death inside the coroner's court, where a new inquest is about to be heard. Cheryl James was 18 and had just finished her preliminary army training when she was found dead, a bullet wound to her head. It's more than 20 years since the body was discovered at Deep Cut Barracks in Surrey. A gun was by her side. The army said it was suicide. It's this assumption her father will not accept and has been struggling to get overturned.
There remains no evidence that the weapon that was found at the side of her was either the weapon that killed her, and certainly no evidence that even if it was, that she was the person who fired the weapon.
Between 1995 and 2002, a total of 4 young soldiers died at the Deep Cut Barracks. In 2004, calls for a public inquiry were rejected. A 2006 review was critical, but concluded the deaths were probably self-inflicted. Finally, in 2014, the High Court ordered today's fresh inquest. The family argued they should be allowed to present new evidence about allegations of sexual abuse at the barracks that may have contributed to Cheryl's state of mind.
I do honestly believe that a culture was created at Deep Cut that allowed these people to exist and allowed them to intimidate children effectively in the way that they did. It was bullying at an extraordinary scale.
The judge promised this would be a full, frank and fearless inquiry into Cheryl's death. But he told Mr. James the wider culture at the base and allegations of sexual assaults before his daughter's death could not form any part of the inquest. The hearing here at Woking should last about 7 weeks, and they're due to hear from more than 80 witnesses in person. Des James was himself supposed to kick it all off with his testimony this afternoon. Instead, we had legal arguments centring around those new allegations and how they might be dealt with. So everything has now been adjourned, and everyone has been told to come back here on Thursday.
JULIET Bremner in Woking, thank you.